Hey, what's going on, everyone? First and foremost, I just wanted to wish you all a happy and healthy new year and welcome you to a series of videos being published by One Up Financial. They're all geared towards helping you retire with more money and less stress. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we want to completely remove 2020 from our memory bank. But as bad as last year was, I think it's always good to kind of take a step back and reflect on what had happened in 2020 and just some of the things that we can learn as investors going forward. So this video is geared around the top 5 key takeaways of 2020 and tips to help investors in the new year. Let's get into it. Number 1, the stock market is not the economy. I actually wrote a post about this 2 months ago, and it really can pretty much be summed up into one word, and that's technology. So just looking at the market as people define when they say, how's the stock market going up when the economy is so bad? The market, as is defined by the S&P 500, so the 500 largest companies, is made up of 5 companies that total 25% of the entire S&P 500. And you've probably heard of all these names: Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and Google. And if you look at those 5 companies, they pretty much were responsible for the nearly 16% return in the stock market in 2020. If you strip those 5 names out, those other 495 companies actually did not perform nearly as well as the market did in 2020. So technology from that perspective, from just looking at the stocks and how they comprise the overall market, but also technology with how people invest. So Robinhood, the online trading app, created this new wave of investors entering the marketplace and throwing tons of money into some of these high-flying tech names. Really created a disconnect between valuations of stocks and the overall economy. You have small, privately held businesses, mom and pop restaurants, hair salons, pizza shops that are shut down and maybe shut down forever. And then you have these giant tech stocks that are just being run up in value, created this disconnect between the stock market and the economy. So I guess the big takeaway there is that the economy does not always reflect what is going on in the stock market. And probably going to see more of that in 2021 because technology is, I think, here to stay. It's only going to get more disruptive as we go forward. And because you own an index like the S&P 500 doesn't necessarily mean you're diversified, because Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, they represent 25% of the entire S&P 500. So owning the S&P 500, you actually do have additional risk in the technology sector. It's always just good to know that. Number 2, stock picking is fun, but it's really, really hard. There was a study done by, I think it was the Financial Times in 2020, that looked at the performance of mutual fund managers from the beginning of the year in 2020 to June 30th, and 70% of them underperformed the benchmark, meaning they underperformed the S&P 500. So take that into perspective for a second. If you have mutual fund managers, these are teams of CFAs, there's professional investors who literally do this stuff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If they can't beat the market, then why would you think that you can beat the market? And forget for a second about the neighbor or the coworker who says that they picked Tesla at the right time and they're up 7, 8, 9, 100%. Those stories are few and far between, 1. And 2, you never hear about the losers. You only hear about the winners. So for every 5 to 10 winners, there are probably 100 to 200,000 losers. But you're not going to hear about the losers, you're only going to hear about the winners. It's very hard to outperform the market, especially now, given that valuations in stocks are incredibly high and just the volume of information that's out there. There are so many different news outlets now and social media that it's very hard for an individual investor to get an edge over the competition, because the stock market almost instantaneously reflects the news in the market price. Almost instantaneously. So if you're going to be picking stocks in 2021, make sure you're having fun doing it, but know that the chips are stacked against you, and make sure that you're investing for the right reasons. Number 3, the government safety net. So by now we've all seen, some of us have seen the stimulus checks arrive in our bank accounts, but in 2020, the government issued trillions, that's trillions with a T, of dollars into the economy, into the pockets of Americans and American businesses. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that the way the market digested that information, if anything bad happens, anything really bad happens, like the coronavirus, we know, the market knows, that the government could just step right in and issue a ton of money, take on some additional debt, and bail out the individuals and some of the businesses that were hurt by the coronavirus. Now, a lot of that stuff I think was warranted. We had to do something, but the market now knows that that's a possibility. So going forward, I think you're going to see that some of the news, whether good or bad, that comes either from a publicly traded company or the White House, I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact on the stock market as it once did, because the market has already gone through one of the worst years and one of the best recoveries in the history of the economy. So it knows, and it will never forget what happened. And going forward, we might not see as much of that price adjustment in the market as a result of some of the news that comes out. So I bring that up because I know sometimes investors will hear something on CNBC or read something in the newspaper and they think, oh my gosh, that's going to cause a huge drop in the market. We got to do this and we got to do that. And I would just say that it's never a good idea to make decisions based on what you think the news, or how you think the news is going to have an impact on the market, because I just don't think that the news plays as much role in the stock market as it once did. Number 4, it pays to know your taxes. When the CARES Act came out last year, I remember reading that 300 some page document, not all of it because I fell asleep several times. And I reached out to 3 attorneys, local attorneys, because I wanted to get their perspective on different parts of that document, specifically as it related to small businesses and the PPP loan, because there are a lot of contradictory verbiage in there that I didn't quite understand what they were trying to do or what exactly it meant. And oddly enough, I got 3 different perspectives from those attorneys and a slew of curse words that I won't share on this video. Quick recap of some of the highlights of the CARES Act that you probably have seen or know about. Required minimum distributions, RMDs, were suspended in 2020, meaning you didn't have to take money out of your IRA if you didn't want to, and that might have saved you some taxes. You also were able to access your retirement accounts early without getting that 10% early withdrawal penalty. And that might have helped some people who needed to tap their retirement accounts early and not have to get penalized for doing so. So we also saw a boost in the unemployment benefits. In some cases, people were making more sitting at home being unemployed than they were actually going to work. And that unemployment income is not taxed the same way as earned income. Individuals were seeing probably some more net cash flow in their household as a result of getting those unemployment benefits. While all those things were more than necessary, those efforts came with some unintended consequences, which were making things so much more complex for people to manage from a tax perspective. Whether the income that you received is taxable or is tax-free, or what is a grant and what is a loan, making the tax laws just much more complex than they already were. I've had at least 10 to 15 clients ask me about their taxes for this year because of all of the unusual things that went on in 2020. So I think that now going forward with the Biden administration and the Democrats owning the majority in the Senate and the House, we're probably going to see some additional tax changes going forward. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. It might happen in 2022. But I think that there are going to be changes coming, so it really pays to know your tax stuff, or it pays to know someone or have an advisor or a tax expert so that you can save as much money as you can on taxes, because things are just going to get more complex as we go forward. Number 5, and this is my favorite, experts can't predict the future. Going back to the beginning of 2020, do you remember when all of the stock analysts were coming on TV and saying, hey, the coronavirus is just going to be out of control in this country. It's going to be a global pandemic. Stocks are going to be absolutely decimated for the first 3 months of 2020. And then the market's going to go straight up and have a 16% return for 2020. Do you remember when that happened? Because I don't. It's a good demonstration that experts cannot predict the future. And just because Jim Cramer on CNBC owns Lululemon in his charitable trust, or Dave Ramsey recommends buying mutual funds and thinks debt is the devil, doesn't necessarily mean that you should take their advice. They are multimillionaires. They can afford to stick cash in their mattress for 40 years and have money left over at the end of the day. They made their money being business owners. They made their money writing books and doing speeches and taking entrepreneurial risks and being on TV. They didn't necessarily make their millions predicting exactly what Amazon stock would be in 12 to 16 months. So when you listen to some of the advice from these experts on TV, just make sure that you understand what makes you unique as an investor. Different goals, different tolerances for risk, different types of income, jobs, businesses, families, all of those things play a key role in how you invest and the financial decisions that you make. Seek out advice from experts who have either walked in your shoes or experts that have experience in working with individual investors like you. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our video today. Please let us know what you thought in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel and let us know what you thought. I mean, we create content based on the problems and the pain points of investors just like you. So if there's something that's really keeping you up at night, or a question or some topic related to personal finance or investing that you just want further clarification on, just let us know. We're happy to do further videos and blog posts to answer those questions. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.